Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Yes, it's the Skeptic Zone podcast, episode number 536 for the 27th of January 2019. Richard Saunders coming to you today from Golden Gate Park in San Francisco. I'm on my way to visit the wonderful Academy of Sciences building, museum, exhibition. It's been here for some years now, and it has a staggering array of things to do, things to look at, things to experience, and a gift shop. A report about that coming up later on in the Skeptic Zone. Also this week, Yowies. Oh yes, Yowies. A report of a Yowie attacking a truck from Australia in the state of Queensland. I'm going to be reading that report and talking about these mythical creatures. Well, maybe they're mythical, with noted cryptozoologist Ben Radford. Ben, of course, is one of the co-hosts of the Squaring the Strange podcast. Also, another report from Trish Hann in her new segment, Trish and Chips. This week, Trish chats to Dr Bard McKay about pill testing at concerts, music events. And this is a big topic in Australia because, sadly, young people seem to be dying because they're taking drugs at pop concerts, outside music events and so on. They don't know exactly what's in the drugs, and there's a move to introduce pill testing at these events. And there's large lobby of people who won't have a bar of it, who say we can't introduce pill testing, but kids are dying. A very vexed issue. Find out more later on with Trish and Chips. What a wonderful park Golden Gate Park is in San Francisco. It's worth having a look on the map, on Google Maps or map of your choice. It's huge, enormous, wonderful, rolling park here with botanical gardens and squirrels. and you can do things like rent a Segway and zip around. So I am now approaching the Academy of Sciences. Well, I do that and walk inside and look for a donut. I hope you enjoy the Skeptic Zone. Joining me from Albuquerque, New Mexico, it's one of the stars of Squaring the Strange, Ben Radford. Hello, Ben.
Hello there.
Great to catch up with you. Now, the reason I'm contacting you is because I was informed of a weird Yowie being sort of a Bigfoot-type character, story coming out of Australia. And I thought, well, who could I chat to? Who's an expert in cryptozoology? Ben Radford. And this has been a long-term interest of yours.
Yes, I've always been fascinated by the sort of the more tangible things, right? And so I've always been a little less interested in UFOs and psychics, for example, because they're sort of beyond our grasp. They're not tangible. But if you're looking at chupacabras and lake monsters and Bigfoot and Yowies, in theory, you could go and grab one and touch one and pet one if it'll let you, I guess.
Good point. I mean, in theory, they are quite tangible. Well, if they existed, I tell you what, right. If they did.
He says advisedly.
Yes, advisedly. Let me, for the benefit of our listeners, I'll read a portion of the story and then we'll come back. Published on the 24th of January 2019, written by Robin Wuth and appearing in the Courier newspaper. Queensland truckie claims Yowie bashed his bonnet. A Queensland truckie, and truckie in Australia means trucker. In the United States, we tend to put IE on the end of many words. Sometimes we put O, but in this case it's IE. A Queensland, and Queensland is the state, the large state, mostly tropical, in the northern part of eastern Australia. A Queensland truckie claims he eyeballed a hulking 3-metre-tall Yowie in broad daylight before it punched his bonnet and melted into the bush. The delivery driver, identified only as Gary, says he was driving in the bushy Gold Coast hinterland on a November morning last year when he rounded a sharp right bend at Witherin and had the experience of his life. He slammed on the brakes after spotting what he thought was a boulder tumbling down a steep slope onto the road. But then it moved. Gary says he watched as the creature unfurled huge, hairy limbs, and stood upright before locking eyes with him through the truck's windscreen. Quote, "It wasn't a rock at all," end quote. Gary has told Yowie hunter Dean Harrison in an interview shared on social media. Quote, "This thing scared the absolute crap out of me," end quote. He said the creature was a towering beast. Its navel level... He said the creature was a towering beast. Its navel level with the truck's bonnet, 6 foot, 1.8 metres, off the ground, and he reckons it would have weighed close to 400 kilos. At first, the Yowie, with its small head and oversized body, seemed somehow shocked or embarrassed as it stood in the full glare of day at 10 a.m. on that November morning. But then it got mad. Quote, "He slapped or punched the centre of the bonnet of my truck. It was like I had hit a small car," end quote, the truckie said. Quote, "He was so tall he had to reach down to hit the truck. Just before he hit the truck, he grunted. It wasn't a scream or a cry or a howl, but a loud grunt. It was hairy. It had hair probably 2 inches long all over its body. It had a round face like a chimpanzee," end quote. While Gary was still trying to make sense of what he was seeing, the creature turned and vanished into the bush. Gary does not want to be identified, fearing being labelled a loon. Mr. Harrison, the Yowie hunter, understands that, but he's not bothered by those who doubt the Yowie's existence. He's sure they are out there, having tracked scores of sightings across Australia for the last 20 years. He says he's even been attacked by a Yowie not once but twice. As far as Yowie sightings go, Gary's is a good one, Mr. Harrison says. Quote, "This is astounding. He had such a clear view of it. Amazing," end quote, he told the Australian Associated Press, adding the truck driver got such a good look at the creature that he was able to draw it. And the article goes on. There will be a link in this week's show notes. You can read the rest of this thrilling story for yourself. But I thought I would end this reading of the story with the final thought in this report. Why have no bodies been found, meaning Yowie bodies? Mr. Harrison believes Yowie family groups operate as a community and take care of their dead. Well, there you are, Ben. That was a report coming out of Australia. What did you make of that?
Well, there were a couple things that jumped out at me. The size was impressive. 3 meters, 9 feet tall. That's about the typical size of the Bigfoot Yowie that we're familiar with here. But a couple red flags as well. The first one was the anonymous source.
Right.
We have a delivery driver named Gary. I'm sure Gary's a nice fellow, assuming he exists. I have no reason to think that Gary is anything but an upstanding, credible person, assuming he exists. But anytime you're dealing with anonymous sources, that's a big red flag, because of course there's a barrier between you and trying to get more information. The second thing that jumped out at me was we also don't know the date. We were told that it was a November morning last year. Well, okay, so that was 2 months ago. Why are we only hearing about it now? Why didn't we hear about it shortly after the incident? So it's a little curious. That doesn't mean it didn't happen, of course, but it's just a little sketchy for me.
Could it be, Ben, and I'm just sort of grasping straws here at the moment, could it be that it's just a nice, funny, almost a feel-good story, a bit weird, and in Australia it's summertime, which we call the silly season, where news is a bit slow, and I wondered why any news agency would pick up such a funny story.
Yeah, I think you're right. There is definitely a tendency in the news media, especially, to handle certain of these sort of weird or extraordinary claims as sort of a cute feature story. It's a human interest. It's not science, capital S. Certainly not as science as they would like to have it. And I've seen that often, and I know you have as well, where journalists, they sort of feel like they're given license. They think, well, I'm not saying that Yowie definitely exists. It's a fun story. But to my mind, the same journalistic integrity should apply across the board. So if you're going to put this in a newspaper and you're going to treat this as a credible account, then it should be credible. There shouldn't be one standard for fun feature stories, another standard science stories, especially if we're talking about something that allegedly exists.
And another point that occurred to me, Ben, if this is real, this is a real thing happening, then the police would have to be involved, because this is a real danger and a real menace to the Australian public.
That's true. I mean, this is the thing. If you're going to take these things seriously, then we need to take them seriously. I did notice that in the news piece, there is no photograph of the alleged damage to the front of his vehicle. There's a sketch, which is, a decent sketch, yeah, I guess. But it's curious that we don't actually see any photographs of the damage done by this Yowie. I would think that would probably be pretty impressive. And, of course, we might actually be able to determine, we might be able to get hair samples or DNA samples or blood or something. So the fact that it's an anonymous person that happened at an unknown date a few months ago and is not accompanied by a photograph but a sketch is shall we say sketchy.
Sketchy. And dare we say, Ben, we are maybe somewhat skeptical.
Yes indeed, Richard.
Okay. Well, I thought I'd chat to the man who certainly knows. And just before we wrap it up, how is Squaring the Strange going?
We're plugging right along. Thank you for asking. We're doing well. We, as you know, we recently went to every 2 weeks, which allowed the three of us, myself and Pascual Romero and Celestia, to sort of have a more regular schedule around our a myriad life duties, including children and work and whatnot. But we're plugging along and have some fun episodes in the can coming up as well.
Fantastic, folks. It's always good to listen to Squaring the Strange, and it's always good to chat with Ben Radford. Ben, I look forward to having another talk with you soon. Well, as soon as another Australian is attacked by some mythical creature.
Any day now, then.
Any day. Ben Radford, thank you very much.
Thanks, Richard. Cheers.
Hey, fellow skeptics.
Ben Radford here,
With Celestia Ward,
your friendly host of Squaring the Strange.
a podcast that looks at topics ranging from legends, panics, and cryptids,
To media myths, psychology, and folklore.
breaking things down and picking things apart.
As we skeptics do.
We bring a few different perspectives on things.
Celestia, for example, is a witty cartoonist.
And Ben is a brilliant writer and longtime skeptical investigator.
We don't always agree,
But we have fun trying.
and we learn new things.
Join us for new topics every week or two.
Or browse our backlog of evergreen episodes.
Available on iTunes and all your podcast feeding troughs.
Squaring the Strange.
Take care, strangers.
Bye-bye.
Let's have some Trish and chips. Here's Trish Hann.
So, I'm here on this lovely hot summer's day in Australia's festival season to talk with Dr Bard McKay.
I'm melting.
Indeed,
it's boiling.
It's boiling. And it's that time of year for those in the Northern Hemisphere where we'll reach about 40 degrees, and a lot of people choose to spend their time outside in a field listening to some questionably good music.
There is all sorts of different music festivals out at the moment. So.
Absolutely. All across the whole country. New South Wales has, is it 3 on just this weekend?
3 this weekend, yep. So
Yeah.
we're worried what's going to be happening to the youth of today.
Indeed.
If they will be surviving through this heat.
Yeah.
Not just because it's a hot day, but also if they've been taking drugs at festivals too.
Yes, so last weekend, recently there was a protest, I understand, about trying to encourage government, specifically here in New South Wales, but also wider government, to introduce pill testing. So I thought we'd just talk about what is pill testing, why do we think it's necessary, is it necessary, etc., etc. We're not talking about drug testing. Obviously, drug testing is very different.
That sounds very police-orientated.
Very police-orientated.
No.
This is a different thing entirely. So this is testing what's in a pill that someone may have bought either online or at a festival. So
Yeah. So,
tell me more.
Well, in Australia we've had one trial so far. So last year, so 2018 in April, there was one pill testing event that was able to be done officially in Canberra at a festival called Groove in the Moo. And they had heaps of people queuing up to have their pills tested. So that's one so far, but we've had pill testing or drug testing for a long time overseas. So even in the Netherlands, it's been available since the early 90s. The technology has changed quite a bit in that time.
Yeah.
So certainly in the first instance, we were using reagent kits.
Yep.
So basically you could put it on filter paper, and then if the filter paper goes a certain colour, then you could work out if it was going to be cocaine that was in like the powder that you've got, or if it was MDMA or ecstasy or something else.
And I understand that's the same kind of thing they would use, say, at the border, or if the police stopped you to see what they were going to charge you with carrying, right?
Yeah, so it takes a few minutes to do. You can order kits online and do it at home if you so desire, and that's all fine and dandy. But what we've been using around the world for quite a few years is a spectroscopy machine. So shining an infrared light at a small amount of powder or part of a pill that you've got a sample from, and then you can get I'm not a scientist in this regard. The way that I understand it is very simple, and it's like getting a fingerprint of the chemical that's in front of you. So you can sort of see if there's a pattern that's equivalent to having MDMA, or if it's just talcum powder, or if it's paint, or I don't know, hydrolyte, electrolyte liquid or powder that's there. So you can find out exactly what that substance is.
Right.
And then there's also a whole range of different techniques that are being used in England particularly. I've been working with a group called The Loop. The Loop UK was the first version of that, and we've now got The Loop Australia. And it's using both a spectroscopy machine, so you can find out that digital signature, but then also using the powder and finding out the quantity of what's there as well. And there's a lot of debate about whether we can find out how much MDMA is in a tablet or not, but certainly that is a possibility to do it. If you've got some brilliant chemists available and experts in their field, then yeah, we can work that out. It takes about 20 minutes to use the spectroscopy machine and about like 40 minutes or so to figure out the quantity, so the actual milligram that a pill contains of a particular ingredient.
So, and this is entirely portable, right? So you're not having to send it off to a lab, you're not having to wait for the results and then come back by motorbike courier. You can do it all in the field at the festival with the music playing.
Yeah, so all of this is portable. The gold standard for finding out what's in a tablet or in powder is really sending it off to a university laboratory and using big fancy machines that go bing. And that can take even a few days for all of those results to come back. So we don't have that portable at the moment. I think we could for about $500,000, but we're still working on that one for the moment. And a lot of people criticise it, saying, oh, well, if you've just got a spectroscopy machine, then what's the use of that? It's like, well, well, we might not have the gold standard that we can take out to a lab, but that we can take out into the field from a lab, but at least we can give a bit of an idea to people who are going to festivals about what their pills contain. So,
and why, speaking to maybe an audience who may not take pills, may not understand kind of what those risks are, we're not talking about necessarily people taking pure MDMA and then overdosing necessarily. You're buying drugs at a festival, there could be anything in them, right? So we're talking like kind of things like fentanyl maybe, or other opiates, that kind of stuff, or even just bog standard talcum powder, right? If you don't know what's in it, what are the risks? Yeah, so some people will buy pills external to a festival, and so they may have their regular dealer and they're very happy to get their pills from that person. What we find from research is that you're more likely to get what you're expecting if you're buying it externally. If you're actually buying it in a festival, when you're past the sniffer dogs and past the police and past the bag checks, then you're really unlikely to get what you're paying for. So this is research that's been done out of the UK, finding that maybe 50% of what you're getting within a festival was actually what you're expecting. Yeah. And the whole thing was like, back in the 90s, everyone was saying, oh yeah, MDMA was in small doses and everyone had a good time. There weren't too many problems. There were still a few deaths around the 90s, I'm sure. Yeah. But these days it's really weird. Like the amount of different chemicals that are in pills has just exponentially increased. So you're really not knowing what you're getting. One of the drugs that's been around is called N-ethylpentalone, which gives people a bit of a high for a few hours and makes them feel like they're on ecstasy. But then they're awake for 3 days and they've got a high chance of having a psychotic episode as well. So we sometimes do see people rocking up to the emergency department going, oh my god, I can't sleep and the demons keep on attacking me. So that's really not what people are wanting. No. If they're having ecstasy and they're wanting a fun time at a festival, normally it would work to give them a high for 2 or 3 hours, but not for 3 days of psychosis. And I understand that like in this festival season we've already had 6 deaths here in Australia of young people who have gone out to have a good time, and the price they've paid for that has been the ultimate price. So obviously what we're talking about here with pill testing isn't necessarily to say to people, oh, hey, these drugs are safe. It's about harm minimization, right? So it's about making sure that they know what's in it, then they can make an educated decision rather than just a guess. Yeah, every country seems to have their own little debate about it, and there's some local issues that develop in local language. And so for some reason in Australia, safe has become a really dirty word. So over in the UK, they were talking about drug safety testing. So mainly providing safety for people. But then in Australia, the whole language has been changed, and now we're debating it because people are thinking that we're going to be checking pills and making sure that that particular pill is safe for somebody to take. But across the board with every pill testing service around the world, we don't say that a pill is safe. We're saying, okay, well, this
these are the ingredients. This is what we expect the dose would be in this batch of pills. No drug taking is safe. We can't say that if you're making these pills in your grandmother's garage, that there's going to be any consistency with the drugs, or that it's going to be like exactly what you're thinking it can be. We can give an idea, but nobody's ever going to say, yeah, this drug that's made in a backyard lab is going to be safe for you. And there seems to be this weird sort of political divide at the moment with this discussion.
Is that, do you think, because politicians are hesitant to be seen as encouraging drug use, and they think that this will encourage it, or do you think it's more that they don't want to touch the subject of drugs whatsoever?
I think it's multifaceted. So one aspect of it is if somebody did have a pill checked, and this is what the politicians are saying, if that person was told that their pill was safe, which we never say, and then they ended up dying from having that pill, then they could be held liable for it. So they're not wanting to have that green light, as they say, to drugs. But that's basically because they don't understand the purpose of it. So other people say, well, why should we have pill testing if we're just going to tell everybody that their drugs are not being safe? And again, like, that's not really what the system's for. And from a skeptical point of view, like, this is really about finding information and knowledge and helping people to make a decision based on what's in front of them. So if you've got somebody with a pill and they have no idea what's in it, and they're going to take it anyway because they're at a festival, they've spent $30 to buy a pill to have 3 hours of fun, then they're about to take it. But pill testing comes in at that time and sort of goes, okay, well, let's have a look at it. Let's see if we can change your mind. Let's give you some knowledge and understanding about what's here. And we find that the vast majority of people who have their pills tested and it's not what they're expecting, they don't take it, or they modify their use for it. If we're able to find the quantity of it as well, so if we're finding that a pill has about 4 times the dose of what would be an expected pill of MDMA, then we can actually say, look, this is likely to be quite a strong pill. We don't advise taking it, but hey, if you're going to take it, then don't take the whole freaking thing. Like, maybe if you broke it into half or a quarter, make your own independent decisions. But just go really slowly with it. And so that's when pill testing can really make a difference. And some people will go into a festival and they'll double drop or triple drop. So taking 2 or 3 pills before they're even getting through the gates. Often people get worried about sniffer dogs that are at the front entrance. And so they're taking all of their drugs because they don't want to be found with them on them. So then if you've got a pill that's 4 times the dose and you're taking 3 of them before you're going past a dog that's sniffing your ankles, then this is when a lot of people do get into trouble, because they're having too much too quickly and then ending up in the medical tent, or worse, dead.
And so a comparison that I quite like to make is that when you're at a festival and you go up to the bar and you buy a bottle of beer, everything on the back of that bottle is listed. It tells you not only the alcohol content, but it'll tell you they'll be gluten-free. It'll tell you whether there's gluten in there. It'll tell you whether there's all sorts of stuff in there. You can get, paleo beers or that kind of stuff as well. So it tells you everything that's in that bottle of beer. Same with cigarettes. Nowadays, compared to the old days, we now know every item that's in cigarettes. And obviously they're still very harmful, but you know about it. No one's ever going to say cigarettes are safe. They are probably safer than they used to be, say 50 years back, but they're certainly not safe. But yet we legitimise them, we tax them, we sell them, because we know what's in them. They're made in factories and that kind of thing, right? So we're not saying that at this point we want to necessarily, federalise drugs and make it kind of a thing made by the government and sold by the government, but people will continue to make and profit from illicit drugs. So harm reduction is definitely a thing that is worth doing, right? And as skeptics within medicine, we're both pretty keen on harm reduction.
Well, some of the arguments are, well, drugs are illegal, so don't take them.
It's your fault.
Just say, if you die, that's your own freaking fault. Whereas I sort of think, teenagers, 18-year-olds probably aren't going to be well and mature by that time. Your brain keeps on developing until at least 25. For some people, a lot longer than that. If you're making a dumb mistake and taking something that's illegal when you're 18, I don't think that you should have to die from that.
Exactly.
But it's also like from a scientific perspective, what makes one drug illegal and the next thing not? That we know that alcohol causes far more problems than MDMA or even methamphetamine in society. So we have about 6,000 plus deaths in Australia every year that are just attributed to alcohol.
Yeah.
It's after cigarettes, alcohol is the second most common cause of cancer.
Yeah.
So it's not safe even though it's legal.
Yeah.
Just putting scientific glasses on and taking the legality out of it, I think that we should be able to provide information for people and then helping them to judge whether they're going to be taking that substance or not.
Yeah, and it's treating people like adults and giving the responsibility back to them. If someone is told, hey, this drug, this pill that you've bought has got rat poison in it and it's got
most people don't take it.
They probably won't take it, right? Because it's not worth it. You tell them what's in it. And that's, I think, maybe something which I've read a lot of sort of the older politicians are saying, no one's going to throw away something they've paid $30 for. If it's going to kill them, they probably will, right?
Yeah. Well, people don't want to kill their friends.
No.
And they don't want to kill themselves.
No.
So we know from UK studies studies all around Europe that about 2/3 of people will dump their drugs if they find that it's not what they expected. The other third, we sort of go, okay, what are they going to be doing? Sometimes they might find that it's ketamine rather than MDMA, and they'll go, oh well, I'll take that then, but that's fine. We don't condone ketamine, but at least they'll know what to expect and maybe not freak out as much if they have a different reaction compared to what they're expecting.
And it helps my colleagues in the emergency department that when they turn up, they can say, this is what I took, rather than it was white and had a smiley face on it.
Exactly, yeah. So it helps us as medical professionals being able to treat people if we know what they're having and we know how long this is expected to last for.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but the other part of it is that there's also this weird feedback mechanism that we don't often talk about in the media or in public. But if somebody has bought one pill and they're planning on buying 20 more from their dealer and they find out that it's poisonous, then they can go back to the dealer and say, hey, you've sold me a really dodgy pill.
Yeah. And
so there's actually this weird subversive quality control that's brought into the system. And we don't really mention this all that much. But it actually what they've found in markets around the world is that people start to produce more MDMA, which is what people are after, and less of the more poisonous, toxic chemicals that can be out there.
So it's a self-regulating market happening right underneath people's eyes without them even knowing it.
Yeah, well, at the moment it's unregulated. There's no tax on it. People can do whatever they want, and there's no repercussions. So if somebody's actually told this is terrible, this is not what you're meant to be selling, then there's some ability to go back down the line and help to have less poisonous toxic pills out there of maybe more suitable doses rather than really high doses, which is what we're seeing in Australia at the moment.
Which, and the thing is as well, I guess, what this enables the organisers of music festivals to do is to issue warnings. If they get someone coming into them with a particular pill that's quite distinctive and they test it and discover it's something very dangerous, they can put out an alert to everyone at the festival saying, don't buy this will kill you. And if they've got drug testing, pill testing on site, then the festival goers are more likely to take that advice seriously rather than just assuming it's scaremongering.
Yeah, exactly. So I've talked to people running festivals over in the UK, and they know that there's some guy who's wearing a black jacket at the certain part of the festival and he's producing all of these really toxic pills for everybody. You can put up billboards, you can put it up on the screens, you can put it out on social media saying these pills that look a little bit grey and they've got a picture of a shield on the front of them, then this is what we're...
vomit.
They smell of vomit. Maybe there's something wrong with them, and so you can actually target your advertising campaign or your warning campaign to that part of the festival, and then hopefully that guy who's standing there in a black jacket in the rain is able to go, oh, okay, well, my business is over.
Yeah.
Let's drop this now. And so we find that people actually, where there's pill testing available, that there's less drug use because people are taking less toxic substances, and they're actually modifying their use and decreasing the amount that they're having because and this is the other part of it. every delivery of information, if you're having pill testing done, it's done by a health professional who knows what they're talking about. And so we actually go through people's past history. We talk about whether they've got epilepsy, if they're on their medication, what medication they're on. Are they on antidepressants that could make them more likely to have a serotonergic reaction and overheat and die from having something like ecstasy? So it's a way of delivering that information that's tailored to that person. And also we find that about 95% of people who have that consultation, that's the first time that they've talked with a health professional about their drug use at all. Yeah. So most people don't sort of go to their family GP and say, hey, I'm taking pills on the weekend. It's not often something that I see, even as a GP working in Darlinghurst in Sydney. But yeah, it's targeting those conversations and enabling people to have an open and honest conversation about their drug use when, otherwise they're getting information from online or from Jack, who's in year 7.
Yes. Well, and that's the thing, is it's hard to see a downside to providing education, right? It's if you want to educate the public and have them make an educated risk, they're going to take that risk anyway. Let's give them something to actually become skeptics, perhaps even drug skeptics.
More knowledge is more power.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, thank you very much, Dr. Bard McKay.
Thank you.
Sweet cappuccino. Soy latte.
Hey, Richard.
Oh, hi, Trish. Hi. Would you like a coffee?
Yeah, thanks. What are you working on?
I'm trying to come up with a new promo to play on the Skeptic Zone.
Who's it for?
The Good Thinking Society in the UK. You know, the...
Oh, yeah, I know them. The guys who recently chased the homeopaths out of the UK public health system.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, they campaigned and lobbied government for a while, and now you cannot get homeopathy on the NHS. So they can now spend public money on healthcare that works.
Oh, right. Look, I'll mention that in the promo. Now, their website is goodthinkingsociety.org.
And that website is a good resource for learning more about quackery.
Ah, thanks, Trish. That gives me something good to think about. The California Academy of Sciences is a research institute and natural history museum in San Francisco, California. It is among the largest museums of natural history in the world, housing over 26 million specimens. The Academy began in 1853 as a learned society and still carries out a large amount of original research. It's California's oldest museum and located in Golden Gate Park. The Academy of Sciences. I'm in the foyer, and one of the first things to greet us and all these excited children is the classic T-Rex dinosaur skeleton. And I love to see these things occasionally. It reminds me how wonderful and fantastic and amazing dinosaurs were and are. And this specimen is particularly fine. It looks wonderful. It's well presented. It looks fierce. And it's a great attraction for kids of all ages. The classic T-Rex, of course, if we look at the forearms, it only has 2 fingers or claws. When we look at the giant feet, chicken's feet, bird's feet, it is so clear. When you look at a theropod dinosaur, you study the feet, and you think of a turkey's foot or a chicken's foot or an eagle's foot. It's absolutely classic. Let's explore the Academy. And I've come across a wonderful display here. It's like a barrier reef, like a coral reef. I can look down and see no end of tropical fish and stingrays from above. Again, it's enchanting to everybody. Let's have a look. Oh, it's just beautiful. Beautiful tropical fish. The kids just love it. Oh, and me too. Good to see so many kids here today. I guess there are many school groups, which is fine. Although I trick myself sometimes because the school kids here in California don't have a uniform by and large, whereas back home in Australia, if I was at a museum and there was a school group, they'd all be marching around in their uniform. And here we have a classic display, which is a giant pendulum all the way to the ceiling on wire, and it's demonstrating that the world is rotating. So the pendulum is swinging back and forth in the same sweep. It doesn't move in that respect, but the Earth is moving beneath it. And as the Earth rotates, the pendulum knocks over various little metal poles. It's quite mesmerizing to watch. And it's a classic experiment to show the world is rotating beneath our very feet. And here's an interesting one. One of the workers here has a alligator or crocodile skin on display.
The crocodile did die, it's true. All right, so you guys can sort of see how that would work, right?
So like you put something on the bottom so it doesn't like that.
And I was just about to say it's like feeling leather, which of course it is. It's feeling leather. Now I'm in an elevator, a lift and elevator going down to the aquarium level, it says. I saw some of the tropical fish from above. So let's see where this opens up to. Anticipation. Hello, I'm stuck. Oh. Now I'm safe. Here we go. And my word. So this is what I was looking down upon. It is a giant aquarium here. I'm looking directly at the fish now. What a wonderful display. How thick must this glass or perspex be? It's a complete coral reef with hundreds of people here absolutely entranced. Now I find myself the exact opposite of before. I am now under the fish, looking up. It's a tunnel under the fish. What the hell is that? These giant fish swimming right over my head. Around another corner, and what a spectacular sight. This is the biggest glass face I've seen here so far. It's about, I don't know, 4 meters tall, something like that, maybe 3.5 meters tall. Get right up to the front of it now. Oh, yeah, that's tall. That's probably about 15 feet tall. I'm multilingual here when it comes to measurements, but it is looking directly into the coral reef, so it's just fantastic. Hundreds of fish, hundreds of tropical fish. I can keep walking around. It's quite disorientating. It's almost like it's moving. And you can probably hear the weird sort of acoustic effect this curved surface is making. I'll step back a little bit and enjoy the whole scene. And it says Philippine Coral Reef. Coming back up a level or two, I'm now looking down upon the enclosure of an albino crocodile or alligator. Let me have a look. And the little information sign says you can tell if this is an albino alligator by looking at its eyes. True albinos have pink eyes and lack the body pigment melanin. In lush green swamps, bright white stands out. A white alligator born in the wild would have a low chance of surviving to adulthood, and yet here one is. And I look down upon it, it looks like it's a Hollywood prop. It's only when you closely look at its eyes, which move occasionally, can you tell that it's a real alligator. Absolutely beautiful. I really cannot underestimate the importance of institutions like the California Academy of Sciences or the Australian Museum in Sydney and their sister organisations all around the world. Especially, and I note again, this place is full of students, school students. Wow, and here's something notable in both directions, to my left and to my right. To my left there is a open lab, a lab with scientists working. You can observe them through a glass window, large glass window. And on the other side we have, goodness me, what is this? It's a giant dome, like some sort of weird experiment that you see in science fiction movies. It's enormous, completely transparent with a spiral walkway inside. And it looks like a tropical forest, complete with lagoon and fish. I guess it's worth a look. And in order to get there, I'm passing the skeleton of, I guess it's a blue whale. I can't quite see the information about it. That's the biggest skeleton I've ever seen. Much like the skeleton hanging from the ceiling at the Australian Museum in Sydney. Oh, I see. I'm passing the section to do with evolution. Oh, that's a good sign. And I guess I better join this long line to get into this incredible-looking dome. We are hundreds of people, and with hundreds of people, we are in a huge glass dome with butterflies flying about and displays of living animals in little glass cases. Tropical plants everywhere. But the people outside in the rest of the facility are looking in on us. So maybe in a weird way we're part of the exhibition. There are lots of little things to do and explore and read along the way. A couple of beautiful parrots here, just about a meter from us. Beautiful macaws. Brilliant blue colour, blue and yellowy orange. And the higher I get, the warmer it seems to be, or maybe that's because I'm exerting myself to walk up this long ramp. And the higher we get, the more butterflies there are. That's interesting. I guess they're all flying to the top. And I can see, way above me, there are butterfly feeding stations. Almost to the very top level, and again another butterfly feeding station. And around it, in the trees, there is a course of butterflies. What's the word I'm looking for? I can't describe it adequately. It's mythical. I am walking in a living sea of butterflies. Beautiful. Another elevator and a set of stairs brings us to the very roof of the Academy of Sciences, which is called the living roof. Let's have a look. Aha. So on top now, the roof is a garden. Or sort of a representation of a real setting. An inviting habitat for birds, it says. With funny domes and rolling hills covered with grass and small vegetation. And it's a wonderful day here. We're on the roof of the Academy of Sciences. And hello, who are you?
I am Shahara Wanigatunga.
And you're one of the volunteers?
I am. I'm a docent volunteer here.
And your job is to explain to people, which you were just explaining to me and some other people, how the roof works. And you've got a little model here, and you've got the layers of the roof. And you're saying that a designer turned up with a sketch pad and just said, "Here's what the roof should look like, complete with rolling hills."
Yes. The architect for this building just came in and had this vision in his head. He was walking his daughter. This is legend. He was walking his daughter around San Francisco and noticed the hills and how beautiful it was. And then he just had this thought that he wanted to preserve the park within the building.
Yeah.
And so he decided that that's how he was going to raise the roof and let the park be on top of it.
And it worked. I think you'll agree, it really worked. So you're up here on the roof today explaining to people how the roof works. Do you find yourself in other areas of the building to explain other things?
Yes, I work in the flooded Amazon rainforest.
Yes.
I work at the tide pools and in the rainforest.
Fantastic. And I guess it's a sort of job that you just really have a heart and a passion for.
Definitely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
I'm now making my way to the planetarium for the 12:30 showing of Journey to the Stars, I think it is. But on my way, I'm stopping by the African Gallery Human Odyssey, it says, which has displays on Africa and evolution of primates. And right at the end is a spectacular display of living penguins. Look at them. Aren't they sweet? And we can see below the water and above the water. They're behind a giant glass panel. And they're just hanging out on their rocks. These penguins are just looking pretty cool, just hanging out. Well, that was very enjoyable. In the planetarium, Journey to the Stars, a visualization of the galaxy and the life of stars. Hello, I'm back at the dinosaur again, the T-Rex, which means it's time to go. Maybe a quick trip to the gift shop on my way out. But what a wonderful thing it is to do, to visit the California Academy of Sciences. If you're planning a visit to the California Academy of Sciences, check out their website at calacademy.org. And the general opening hours are Monday to Saturday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m, or on Sunday, 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone, and thank you again to those people who contribute via Patreon or PayPal. And if it wasn't for your generous support, there would be no Skeptic Zone, of course. And if you've ever considered chipping in, helping to support the Skeptic Zone, well, why not try it for $5 a month via Patreon, and do that for the rest of 2019. If only a tiny percentage of the listenership did that, it would really help the show stay online. As it stands at the moment, it scrapes through every week, every month. It sort of just scrapes through with a lot of kind support from especially my reporters, and a lot of free work being done, I have to be candid. So if you've ever considered it, it would be really great if you could do so. And maybe also at the same time you can consider supporting Maynard at maynard.com.au with his podcast, because he is works very hard to bring you fabulous entertainment and comedy. Looking forward to seeing Maynard soon. I hope to be back in Australia in about a week. Although I understand with the heat over there, maybe it's better to be in California or anywhere. But for this week, with very, very excited school children just having visited the Academy of Sciences, this is Richard Saunders signing off.
All right, so Theo, James.
Sort of, trying to. This is Richard Saunders signing off from San Francisco, California. You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Please visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for show notes, contacts, and to access the back catalogue of episodes going back to 2008. You can follow the Skeptic Zone podcast on Twitter at Skeptic Zone, visit our Facebook page, or leave a review on iTunes. You can also support the Skeptic Zone via Patreon or PayPal. The Skeptic Zone podcast is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed on the Skeptic Zone are not necessarily those of Australian skeptics or any other skeptical organisation.